Chapter 91, Scalded Song Chinyen. You are listening at novelfull.audio. If you love our translation, please consider us donating. Or we are also on Patreon. It really motivates us to give more time for translation. This week chapters 1/5 editor. Ocelot Song Chinyen wore a plum-colored off-shoulder dress. Her fair neck and shoulders were proudly displayed, showing off her delicate collarbones which could be seen under the sheer cloth. The dress was embellished with shining diamonds and crystals. It sparkled under the beaming sunlight. Murong Shui sneered upon seeing her pretty dress. Song Chinyen must have had other intentions, too bad. Her effort was in vain since Yang did not even cast a glance in her direction. Song Chinyen, this is Zhen Manor, not Wuan Manor. What kind of commotion brings you here? Song Chinyen hid her disappointment when she saw there was nobody behind Murong Shui. Murong Shui, where is Yang? He does not want to see you, just leave. Murong Shui expelled her without even thinking. She was too lazy to talk to her now. Song Chinyen's face dropped at the news. She stared at Murong Shui angrily. Did you say something to him? That's why he doesn't want to come out and meet me. Song Chinyen, do you think I can order him around? He doesn't want to see you because he's fed up with you. That has nothing to do with me. Stop being so imaginative. Murong Shui retorted proudly as a light breeze blew across her hair, showing off the love marks on her neck. Song Chinyen saw that and was manic. Murong Shui and Yang had been so intimate with each other, and now she was telling her that she had nothing to do with him. Murong Shui, don't you ever forget that you are engaged. Even though you gave yourself to Yang, he will never be yours, so stop daydreaming. Murong Shui's face sunk. Song Chinyen was too much, and her words were as sharp as knives. Song Chinyen, leave Luo Shuigu immediately, you are not welcomed here. What if I don't want to leave? Song Chinyen pestered, her eyes were filled with fury. Then I will ask my guards to send you out. Murong Shui snapped determinedly. Don't you dare. Song Chinyen could not take it any longer. Guards, send my cousin back to her room. Murong Shui commanded without care. She would let Song Chinyen know who was the powerful one and that she was in charge here. Yes. Two strong nannies, one on each side, began to carry Song Chinyen as they walked out. Song Chinyen could not feel her feet on the ground. She tried to escape from their grips as she shouted angrily, "What are you doing? Let me down." The nannies ignored her yelping, they continued on with Song Chinyen firmly in their arms. Song Chinyen could not escape no matter how hard she tried. You two old hags, you've disregarded my commands that I will let grandmother sell you off if you don't put me down this instant. I'm sorry, my lady. Our contracts are with Miss Murong Shui. The madam has no right to sell us. The two strong nannies popped her bubbles and continued walking. Song Chinyen felt helpless as she turned and stared at Murong Shui. Two maids sashayed courteously towards Luo Shuigu. Passing Song Chinyen, they were holding a bowl of soup in their hands. Song Chinyen suddenly thought of an idea. She kicked the bowl of soup from the hands of the maid with might. The bowl flew towards Murong Shui with that one kick. Murong Shui saw the bowl from the corner of her eye as she was about to leave. She quickly grabbed a wooden stick from beside her and with no options decided to swing it hard. The bowl then flew towards Song Chinyen's shoulder, spilling half of the boiling hot soup on her. Ah! Song Chinyen cried out in pain as the burning sensation hit her. Murong Shui watched as Song Chinyen escaped from the nannies. She was wiping her neck and shoulder furiously while screaming to the maids and stewards, "It's hot, it's hot. Call the doctor, go call the doctor." Yes, the stewards and maids nodded and walked away quickly. Song Chinyen glared at Murong Shui with hatred. "Murong Shui, you tricked me again. You are the black-hearted one. You intended to scald me with that bowl of soup, but your plan backfired. You can't blame me. If you insist on accusing me, I don't mind scalding you again. Murong Shui said casually as she took the other bowl of soup from her maid. Song Qinyan shuddered at this. She knew how cruel and heartless Murong Shui could be. She knew in her heart that if she disgraced her once again, Murong Shui would definitely burn her once more. Murong Shui, you win this time. Song Qinyan shouted angrily, glaring at her, and walked back to her room, with her steward lifting her injured arm. The soup was indeed boiling hot. She had to clean herself up immediately, she could not let it burn through her skin. Song Qinyan would remember what Murong Shui had done to her forever. She would return twofold the revenge when the time was right, leaving Murong Shui no choice but to beg her for mercy. Song Qinyan walked to the end of the path and disappeared as she turned in the corner. Murong Shui shook off thoughts of her as soon as she saw Song Qinyan walk away. By chance she noticed that the golden purse on her waist had been drenched in soup. She quickly took the purse from her waist and wiped off the damp filth using her handkerchief. She tried to be as careful as she could when she hit the bowl earlier, but still she could not spill. Luckily it was on the purse instead of her skin. This golden purse was given to her by Murong Yi. She had been so caught up with her work after the returning from Yushan that she kept forgetting to return it to him. She wondered if the amulet inside the purse was wet too. The amulet was passed down to him from their mother, making it even more precious and valuable. Hopefully nothing would happen to it. Murong Shui opened the purse at this thought and removed a thin piece of paper from inside. The paper was clean and there was no water stain at all, but wasn't the amulet drawn on normal paper? Why was this on sheepskin? Murong Shui opened up the amulet, feeling puzzled. The sheepskin was old and had faded into a yellowish tone. She felt somewhat familiar with the black inked letters written on it. Murong Shui scrunched her eyebrows and tried to recall a memory. The half-picture she had stolen from Qin Yuyuan was similar to this, so what could it be? Murong Shui's eyes lit up as if she knew something. She clutched the sheepskin securely and ran to Luo Shuigu. Chapter 92, Tricked by the Black-Hearted. You are listening at novelfull.audio. If you love our translation, please consider us donating. Or we are also on Patreon. It really motivates us to give more time for translation. This week Chapters 2-5 Editor. Ocelot. Murong Shui ran to her room and took out a piece of sheepskin from the tiny slot in her wall. She fixed the two pictures together and lo and behold, a complete image appeared in front of her eyes. In huge letters, "Treasure Map" was clearly visible on the sheepskin as she pieced it together. Now she knew why Qin Yuyuan became a NT maniac when she took away the sheepskin. This was the precious treasure map from the former dynasty. Qin Yuyuan had spent a long time finding this map, so of course she was furious when Murong Shui stole it effortlessly. But then, how was the other half of the map in Murong Ye's purse? And it was the purse that had been passed to him by Madame Shen. Murong Shui was confused. She opened her room door and walked out, seeing Ouyang sitting alone at a table by a tree. Elegant vibes surrounded him in his white robe, but Mu Lufeng was nowhere in sight. She blinked her eyes in curiosity. Where is Mu Lufeng? He has gone back to Qing Manor. Hi, do you want to find him? Ouyang asked, the steam from his cup rising to cover his face as he drank his tea. Murong Shui shook her head. Nothing, but I do have something to discuss with you. What? Ouyang raised his head. Murong Shui sat beside him, whispering mysteriously, are you interested in treasures? She was certain that this treasure was nothing trivial if Yi Chen was so keen about it. She was not a materialistic person, but she was willing to do this if it would be a hindrance to Yi Chen and Qin Yuyuan. Sadly, troops from Zhen Manor could not defeat Jing Wang Manors. If she finds the treasures with her guards, Yi Chen would steal everything from her without doubt. Therefore she had to work with someone. Ouyang was the strategist and intellect in the city. He must have a lot of strong warriors under him, making him the most suitable candidate for this trip. Ouyang felt her warm breath on his neck. He turned to look at her, you know where the treasures of the former dynasty are. Murong Shue smiled and put the 2 sheepskin fragments on the table. If I'm not mistaken, this is the route map to the treasures, the landmarks are dotted in detail. If we follow this, we will find the treasure. Yang looked at the curves and drawings on the map unconcernedly. Where did you find this? Are you even sure it's real? Murong Shue smiled in delight. I got this by luck. These sheep skins are faded, so I assume it is very old. As for the roots and symbols, we have to explore for ourselves to see if it's true. If this map is fake, it would be just a waste of our time and we'd lose nothing. But if it's real, we will be filthy rich. Yang raised his eyebrows. You love money that much. Money will never be enough. Murong Shue quoted Mu Lufeng and smiled at Yang. Yang, I give you the map, you give me your men, we split the money half each after everything, alright. Yang looked at her weirdly, half each. Then. How about I get 40, you get 60? That's the final deal because half of this map was my mother's, and I almost got killed because of the other half. Murong Shue was not really interested in the treasure, she wouldn't even care even if she didn't find it, but since Madame Shen passed the map to Murong Yi, she wanted him to have part of the treasure, therefore she had to leave some to Murong Yi when she found it. Yang looked at her as she was thinking, you found the map, you should keep the treasures. I wanted to offer some of my troops to help you, without any return, but since you plan to give me 60% of it, I will not refuse. Murong Shue was flabbergasted. Free help. He should have said so earlier. She did not intend to give him 60%. When she suggested half each, she saw his weird expression and thought that it was too little. This black-hearted man, she was tricked again. Yang grinned when he saw her gloomy face. He flattened the sheepskin and studied it. It's late now, let's do some research on the route first, this is about my 60% treasure, we cannot be careless. Murong Shue. He did this deliberately. He wanted to spark her anger and show her how imprudent she was for giving him the 60%. A black shadow quietly passed by outside of the room. In Jing Wang Manor's study room. Yi Chen sat at his study table with his arms leaning against it. He stared deeply at the framed painting frame on the wall. The painting was not of nature. Instead it showed a young man who was shot by 3 arrows on his arms and head. The man in the painting was none other than Murong Ji. 3 arrows in a row was the famous tactic used by the Murong family. Every generation in the household knew this skill, but to shoot right in the heart with all 3 arrows was incredibly difficult, and the person who knew how to do this was really prevailing. The only person who could master this skill was Murong Yu. His arrow shooting could hit different major arteries of the enemies. He was the expert. The arrow shooting scene was painted perfectly without flaws. Even though he did not witness this with his own eyes, he knew how astonishing it was when Murong Shue shot the 3 arrows. The gentle fiancé in his mind vanished at this thought, or it was probably because of the limited interaction he had with her, perhaps that was why he did not know this side of Murong Shue. He changed his perception of her strength, toughness, and intelligence. Ichen, a feminine voice broke his thoughts. He pulled down the painting and faced towards the door. Qin Yuyuan wore a purple sheer dress. She walked into the room gracefully and smiled sweetly at him. Ichen, let me share some good news. I've found the other half of the treasure map. Yi Chen eyes widened, really? Where is it? It's with Murong Shue. Qin Yuyuan said. You mean Murong Shue has the complete map? Yi Chen confirmed her statement. That's right, she has discussed it with Yang and they are on their way to find it now. Qin Yuyuan continued, we have to stop them. Chapter 93, Danger Ahead. You are listening at novelfull.audio. If you love our translation, please consider us donating. Or we are also on Patreon. It really motivates us to give more time for translation. This week chapters 3-5 editor. Ocelot Murong Shui trusted Yang so much that she was willing to share this important news with him and find it together, so clearly they must be very close with each other. Yi Chen felt his emotions stirring up inside. Yang is hard to deal with. We need to think of a good plan to stop them. Don't worry, I've already placed a tracker on Murong Shui. We can watch their movements 20/47. It will be as easy as ABC to track them. Qin Yuyuan said with confidence. Yi Chen warned her, Murong Shui and Yang were smart people, we have to be extra cautious with our plans. Don't be anxious, I know what I'm doing. I have already thought of a perfect plan to defeat them. Qin Yuyuan smiled. Murong Shui's emerald dress was capturing under the rays of the sun. She rode swiftly her horse, speeding with the wind through the trail. Unexpectedly, she heard a ruffling sound coming from the bush. With a swift throw of a poison needle, a thud sound, and a black figure fell from a tree instantly. The man crumpled unconscious on the ground. Murong Shui glanced at the body while the horse kept going despite what had happened. Spy sent by Yi Chen. Exactly. Yang nodded in confirmation. Murong Shui smirked. She knew Qin Yuyuan would not let her go so easily after she stole the map from her. With the spy and all, by now Murong Shui understood how she worked things out. This spy has followed us since the beginning of our journey. Why didn't you do anything? Why wait till now? Yang asked with great interest. Murong Shui chuckled. According to this map, we will reach the destination soon. There are a lot of forked roads but only one of them leads to the treasure. This spy was cataleptic, he could no longer follow us. If Yi Chen can't track us, we won't have any troubles getting the treasure. Yang chortled a little, I don't think it's that simple. What do you mean? Murong Shui was puzzled. There's another spy behind us. Yang stated. Murong Shui stunned. True enough, she heard another ruffling sound from the woods. The spies from Jingwang Manor were so clingy, it was such a hassle to get rid of them. Do you have any idea of how to escape them? Yi Chen sent them here to find out the exact location of the treasure. How can we get to it with all these spies around? Of course. Yang smirked and leaped over to grab Murong Shui by her waist. He then carried her mid-air and hopped forward. Benove calm Murong Shui blinked as she watched the scenery passing by her in rapid motion. Yang's flying skill was the finest. If he carried her using this technique even Yi Chen could not get to them, to say nothing of his spies. He was so brilliant to come up with this idea. Murong Shui saw a hill from afar. The hill was neither too high nor low, with flora and fauna covering the land looked somewhat familiar to her. Murong Shui landed on the ground and took out the map. She carefully read the symbols and exclaimed, the treasure is on this hill, let's go down. Are you sure? Yang asked. Yes, I'm sure. Murong Shui pointed to the map and said, look here, it is all drawn out in this map. Yang stared at the map for a moment. He looked up and saw the trees and flowers, but there was no cave or hole in sight. Murong Shui squinted, the map showed a cave here at this spot, but there wasn't any cave here. Freeing herself from his arms, Murong Shui walked slowly to the hill. She simply pulled the leaves in front of her and slowly, a rock door appeared in front of them as she pulled away the leaves. Murong Shui's face lit up, this might be the entrance. Yang, please help. The cave was completely blocked by rocks and stones. HSE did not bring any digging tools with her. If she used the tree branches to dig up the door, she would not even finish digging after the sun set. Yang flicked his fingers and a swift force busted the rocks and the cave expunged tiny bits of stones and dust into the air. When the dust faded away, a small tunnel appeared before them. It was pitch dark and hollow. Murong Shui was correct about this. Yang, let's go in. All right. Yang went in first, Murong Shui followed behind him. The cave was damp, odors filled the air and beneath their feet were tons of algae. They were certain that no one had walked here for a long time. Murong Shui walked slowly in the darkness, but she still slipped and fell forward. Be careful. Yang grabbed her hand, locking hers with his tightly. Hold on to me, don't let go. I know. Murong Shui nodded. She did not like physical contact with people, but it was too dark in here and she might fall again if she let go of Yang's hand. A glaring light hit their eyes when they walked halfway. Murong Shui looked up and saw ahead of them stood a 2-meter tall rock wall. It was as if they went towards to the end. It might be the door to guard the pathway ahead. If they destroyed this rock wall, they would see the trail. Murong Shui walked eagerly to the rock as a hoot sound caught her off guard. She looked in the direction of the voice and saw a steel bed full of nails was being thrown towards them. Chapter 94, Fights. You are listening at novelfull.audio. If you love our translation, please consider us donating. Or we are also on Patreon. It really motivates us to give more time for translation. This week chapters 4-5 editor. Ocelot, look out. Yang pulled Murong Shui from behind. He flicked his fingers again and a swift wind shot from his fingertips, spreading to all corners and hitting the steel bed. The nails fell from the bed with a pang, pang, pang sound. A loud sweeping sound was heard abruptly. Before Murong Shui and Yang could comprehend, a huge net was thrown over them. Murong Shui reacted rapidly by pulling out her sword and slicing towards the net. A bright light flickered as her sword touched the net. The net was not torn, but instead, she was forced backwards and her hand was numb from the force. This net was made by the mighty silk from Mo Bay. It's unbeatable by anything. Murong Shui, Yang, don't waste your energy, a soft female voice came from above. Qin Yuyuan, you deceived us. There was no deception. There's only one treasure. You want it, we want it too, so are fighting to get it, the feminine voice said cheerfully. Murong Shui replied ironically, true enough. Princess Qing is known for getting what she wants no matter what. You must have planned in detail to get this treasure. Just bring it on, we are not afraid. Murong Shui was implying that she was a cold-blooded wicked person indirectly. Qin Yuyuan's temper rose, how dare you? Since you're asking for it, I will destroy you. As soon as she finished her sentence, she rolled a few odd-looking balls towards them and they spread gas all over the couple. Yang covered his face, this is poisonous gas. Stop breathing. Murong Shui quickly stopped her breathing, but was too late. She had breathed in a bit of the smoke and started to feel wobbly. She could not feel her legs and she slowly collapsed to the ground. Watch out. Yang grabbed her by the waist, took out a white handkerchief and covered her nose. Murong Shui smelled a gust of a scented aroma and started to regain her consciousness. She looked at Yang curiously, this handkerchief can detoxify. Yang nodded his head and said, this handkerchief was soaked in numerous herbs, so that it can release body heat, stop blood clot and detoxify. I see, Yang has done a lot of homework before finding the treasure. Qin Yuyuan walked over with her guards by her side, looking at the both of them. I've always brought along my handkerchief with me, it's not some planning, but your thorough plan is quite impressive. Yang teased sarcastically. Qin Yuyuan ignored his tone and said, Yang thank you. The steel net trapped Yang and Murong Shui tightly, and Qin Yuyuan felt the satisfaction in her heart. Who cared if he was the master from Xiaoyao Manor, she still caught him after all. How exciting. The steel net was so durable and tough that Murong Shui could not even slice it open. She threw off the handkerchief in frustration. Qin Yuyuan, how did you know we came here? They had abandoned their horse and used the flying skill. Those spies could not even chase after them, but now Qin Yuyuan managed to find her way to them with her guards. There must be something wrong. I've dropped a tracker on your body, so I can find you easily no matter where you go. Those spies were used to divert your attention so that you would not notice the tracker. Qin Yuyuan explained with pleasure. Murong Shui was trapped by her plan, there was nothing she could do now. So it is. Murong Shui understood now. She recalled that morning as she left her house there was a maid who was carrying a bowl of soup, walking in a hurry that it was probably dropped on her that time. You have even placed your spies in Jin Manor. You are good. Murong Shui scoffed. Qin Yuyuan continued, I have put in a lot of effort into getting the other half of the map, how could I let it be stolen by some cunning crook? Murong Shui fought back, stop trying to take all the credit. If not because of my mum, you would not have found the map. Stop your nonsense, Murong Shui. Thanks to you, I've found the place of the treasure. You can leave after I've stored all of it. Qin Yuyuan hinted at her guards. The guards understood her and ran towards them with their swords. Qin Yuyuan was pleased with herself, this secret should not be leaked out, so I'm sorry to you too. Murong Shui smirked at this, Qin Yuyuan trapped both of them in this steel net so that she could get the treasure, she even ordered her guards to attack them from everywhere, she was indeed heinous. Qin Yuyuan, you want to kill us, just look at yourself. Oh Yang flicked his fingers and the steel net was turned inside out and flew over to the guards. The guards were caught off guard and were trapped inside the net, they tried to free themselves and Oh Yang flicked his fingers again, blowing the guards away, causing them to hit on the wall and fell to the ground. They moaned and groaned in agony as they felt their bones were broken, they could not get up. He had settled the guards, now it was time to wipe the enemy off. Murong Shui looked at Qin Yuyuan, it's my turn to kill you. She then stretched out her swords and threw it to Qin Yuyuan. Qin Yuyuan was shocked and tried to run away from the attack. Her steel net was known to be impeccable, but it did not stop Oh Yang's plot, she should have known it was not that easy to deal with him. Not now, she could not run away just like that. Dnav Om Murong Shui leaped and stood in front of Qin Yuyuan, she pulled out her sword and stabbed her arms, blood was spilled everywhere. Ah! Qin Yuyuan cried out in agony. Chapter 95, Dying Alone. You are listening at novelfull.audio. If you love our translation, please consider us donating. Or we are also on Patreon. It really motivates us to give more time for translation. Editor. Ocelot, a gush of fresh red blood seeped out from her wound, staining her long sleeve, her arm was in piercing agony. Qin Yuyuan looked up and stared at Murong Shui in hatred, her eyes were flaming with rage. Murong Shui, I curse that you will die grief. Don't worry, you'll die sooner than I will, even if I did die in grief, you won't be able to see it. Murong Shui smiled, she was so happy with her deed, she pushed down her sword again and again, piercing Qin Yuyuan's arm from multiple times, her wound was getting larger and the blood stained her sleeve even more. Ah! 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 Qin Yuyuan screamed in pain. Murong Shui, I will kill you. Qin Yuyuan's eyes were turning red, she could not care less about her condition and dashed towards Murong Shui. Murong Shui felt a sense of disgust and shifted her body slightly to avoid her attack, then she kicked furiously on her back, making her fell 3 meters away. Qin Yuyuan fell hard on the cold hard ground, she could hear buzzing sound in her ears as she hit her head. Murong Shui walked closer to her, her footsteps were ringing in Qin Yuyuan's ears, she bit her jaw tightly, she had arranged professional spies to kill Murong Shui, but Murong Shui had better planned to kill them all, now she even wanted to kill herself. Murong Shui was indeed cruel, she was the noblest princess of Mo Bay, how could she die in Murong Shui's hand? Qin Yuyuan took a glimpse and grabbed a long sword from the ground, she dashed it towards Murong Shui. Murong Shui sneered at this, she was trying to kill her with this lousy sword. That was a foolish move. She dodged the attack by shifting her body to a side. Murong Shui continued to walk towards Qin Yuyuan, her long sword was still dripping with her blood from earlier attack, drip by drip, it spilled on the dusty ground. The hint of blood covered the whole place, Qin Yuyuan was not shaken by that, she was fearless, the corner of her mouth raised slightly and she hit on a small round rock by the rocky wall beside. Suddenly, the sturdy ground split into half and Morong Shui fell right into the hole, not knowing what just happened. Qin Yuyuan was tripped on that small rock when she first came in. She had noticed it earlier. It was connected from the rocky wall to the ground. At first she assumed it was for decoration purpose. After some detailed observation, she knew it could be her chance of getting rid of the enemy. The maze of treasure was usually trap. This was to prevent seekers from getting into the treasure place, therefore she activated the trap and got rid of Morong Shui. Shui'er. Yang saw the whole incident and jumped along with Morong Shui into the pit hole. While jumping down, he waved his hands and a mighty net covered Qin Yuyuan, pulling her down into the trap as well. Yuyuan. Yi Chen leaped into the rocky hole along with his scream just as the opening of the trap was about to close. His face was as dark as the hole, his fist was clenching under his sleeve. No matter how fast he was, Yi Chen was still too late. Guards, find the trap immediately, open up this trap. Yi Chen ordered with a strict tone. The temperature in the area was declining. Yes. The guards answered and scattered away, trying to find the trap opening. Su Tianyou's eyes sunk as he rushed forward. Master, from what I know, the treasure's opening can be only open once at a certain time. The opening has just closed. Even if we could find it, we had to wait for a period of time. Yi Chen squinted his eyebrows when he heard this. Then what should we do now? Yuyuan had tricked Morong Shui and Yang, now she fell into the pit with them. She must be tortured by them now. He had to find her quickly to prevent any unhappy ending. Su Tianyu stated firmly, those traps in the treasure area are all connected. Let's find in other places. If we can find the opening and go into the trap, we'll definitely find Princess Qin. Makes sense, let's go. Yi Chen took a step forward. Back in the trap where Morong Shui and Yang fell, he held on to Morong Shui's tiny waist, hugged her tightly in his chest. His musky scent traveled to her nose, his warm breath exhaled on her earlobe. Morong Shui felt a sense of comfort. She noticed someone in the net with them in her corner of eyes. She smirked and kicked with all her might to shove Qin Yuyuan down. With a loud pang, the three of them fell hard on the goron below. Qin Yuyuan was unfortunately the flesh cushion for them as they fell. She vomited blood with a ft and lied on the ground. The slight movement on her chest indicated that she was still alive. Morong Shui was on the highest. She was completely uninjured. When she stood up, she stomped on Qin Yuyuan again. This wicked woman had fell into her own trap, served her right. Qin Yuyuan closed her eyes and did not move a single bit. Morong Shui glared at her and turned around. She glanced over the place, realizing they were in a closed space. The whole area was covered with rocky walls and there was a tiny tunnel that could only fit a person in front of them. Sure, let's go in front. She heard Yi Chen's voice when she was falling. She knew that he would have ordered his people to dig up an exit to find Qin Yuyuan. They would not stay here forever and die. All right. Yang nodded and grabbed her hand tightly. They walked towards the tunnel slowly. When he noticed the unconscious Qin Yuyuan, he asked, what about her? Morong Shui glared at Qin Yuyuan with disgust and replied nonchalantly, she's already half dead. It would waste our energy to bring her with us. It's better to leave her here and let her die alone. Qin Yuyuan wanted to kill them so badly. Of course she would not let Qin Yuyuan go. It would be too easy for her if they just kill her with a sword. She rather tortured her to death. This was the best punishment for her. Qin Yuyuan was already wounded from the start. Moreover, she pierced her wound multiple times just now and let her be their flesh cushion when they fell. She was truly deathly wounded. It was icy cold, dark and moist in here. There were no food and water, not to mention medications. After a period of time, she would have died if there was no proper treatment. All right. Yang nodded again and pulled Morong Shui into the tunnel. As they disappeared into the dark, Qin Yuyuan opened her eyes and scowled at the tunnel opening. Her eyes were cold, staring with hatred. They wanted to leave her here to die alone, continue to dream on. She would not let their wish come true. She had to keep up with them and kill them when the time was right, so that she could take revenge for how they embarrassed her. Chapter 96, Treasure Found. You are listening at novelfull.audio. If you love our translation, please consider us donating. Or we are also on Patreon. Editor. Ocelot. The tunnel was narrow and long, and the ending of the tunnel could hardly be seen. A moist and foul scent hit their noses, making Murong Shue cringe. We've been walking for almost an hour. The tunnel still looks the same. Where will it lead us to? Looking at her irritated face, Yang smiled gently. Does the map have any marks on it? Murong Shue read the map and shook her head. It only recorded the location of the treasure. It doesn't indicate any geographical landmarks or tunnels in the cave. These marks were too detailed. There was no wonder the former emperor did not draw out this part, otherwise anyone could find the treasure easily. Yang studied the rocky walls and said, "This tunnel has a stench. There are no openings or traps. Let's continue down, maybe we can find the exit." "We have no other choice." Murong Shue sulked. Hopefully this tunnel was not in a circle, otherwise they would come back to the starting point and be stuck in this cave for life. Suddenly, a breeze blew across her cheeks. Murong Shue's face lit up. "There's wind, there's an exit near here." Even though it may not be an exit, it would still be a door that lead to another path. There would be no need to continue on in this tunnel. The rocky walls were still the same, there was no difference along the way. Yang's face darkened. The opening should be nearby, let's find it properly. Murong Shue nodded and pressed on the wall with her tiny fair hands. The walls were sticky and full of algae. The salty stench hit them again as she furrowed her brows slightly and continued pressing on the rocky walls. As she pressed a protruding triangular rock, suddenly, the rock in front of them moved aside with a loud hong. With that, a ray of bright sunlight shone upon them, so bright they could not open their eyes. Murong Shue lifted her hands to shield her face from the brightness. Peeking through the gap in her fingers, she saw a picturesque golden mansion before her. The entrance to the golden mansion was decorated with pearls and jewels on the walls, and each jewel was enormous and lavish. Four golden pillars stood grandly, supporting the opulent weight of the mansion's entrance. In the middle of the golden pillars were 12 staircases made of pure gold. At the top of the stairs was a finely carved golden throne, adorned with numerous gemstones and ornaments. Golden boxes were placed randomly along the floor of the mansion. Extraordinary gems were piled up in them, and some were even spilling over and onto the ground, making it shiny and sparkly. There was a 2-meter wide pool outside of the mansion. The clear pool surrounded the mansion elegantly. It was so clear that they could see the steam rising from below. Murong Shue's eyes went wide as she saw the luxurious scene in front of her. Gold was used to make pillars and tiles, pearls were used to decorate walls, the precious corals that were so hard to find were placed randomly here and there. The former emperor must have been filthy rich. No wonder even Yi Chen wanted these treasures. They were limitless. Anyone who saw these treasures would long to own them. Murong Shue walked into the mansion slowly. Her toes encountered a small rock and suddenly she tripped. The rock floated above the surface of the pool, which created a slight turbulence. The small waves then sucked the hovering rock into it. The whole process was so swift and accurate. Murong Shue was puzzled. What was that? The water was no longer clear. It became gray, and a hint of red could be seen, proving that whatever had happened was real. "The pool water is toxic, we cannot fly above it, or else we will be sucked into it and completely decompose." Yang mumbled in a low voice, his eyes drifting. Murong Shue asked curiously, "Then how should we cross over?" The pool water surrounded the whole mansion. If they could not fly over it, they had no way to get into the mansion to retrieve the treasures. "I think there's a small wooden bridge over there, let's cross it." Yang pulled Murong Shue to the bridge. It was faint black in color and was only 10 centimeters wide. They had no idea what kind of wood it was made of as it did not decompose even though it had hovered over the pool water for years. Yang braced himself and walked up to the bridge first. Seeing there was no reaction below the bridge, he grabbed Shue's hand and took small steps to cross it. As they were reaching the end of the bridge, two small rocks flew beside on the bridge. The calm water turned into a rigorous wave, and a musky stench filled the air. Shue was alarmed by this, and before she could take it in, the water splashed on her cheeks. A white sleeve waved and the pool water subsided. A strong force grabbed onto her slim waist and brought her to the bank. A hint of burnt scent hit her, and when she regained her senses, she saw smoke was coming up from Yang's sleeve. "How are you?" Shue asked worriedly while pulling up his sleeve to check on his wound. Yang stopped her immediately and said, "It was only my sleeve, I'm fine." "Are you sure?" Shue doubted if that was the truth. The power of the wave was so strong, how had it not hurt him? "Of course. Why would I lie?" Yang replied nonchalantly, "Someone thought of this way to get rid of us." "How smart." Shue was stunned when she heard this. She stared in the direction the rocks flew from, then she noticed a familiar shadow squatting by the bridge entrance. That person was glaring at her so hard that she could sense the hatred and evil. Shue, Yang, they were not hurt at all by that acidic water. How lucky. Qin Yuyuan, so it was her. Shue squinted her eyes and shot a silver needle from her hand. It hit Qin Yuyuan's wrist. Ah! Qin Yuyuan's piercing scream filled the place. Shue acted as if she did not hear anything and continued her path towards Qin Yuyuan. She grabbed onto her collar and glared, "You're so badly injured, yet you still came all the way here and tricked us. You, Qin Yuyuan, are heartless. Since you like this deathly water so much, I'll make your dream come true and let you unite with it." When she finished her sentence, Shue kicked Qin Yuyuan hard, making her fall on the ground once again. Her body rolled closer to the pool side, and half of her leg was on the water. At that moment, the water stirred up into waves and splashed onto her leg. Chapter 97, Abuse of Qin Yuyuan's Smoke. You are listening at novelfull.audio. If you love our translation, please consider us donating. Or we are also on Patreon. It really motivates us to give more time for translation. Editor. Ocelot, ah. Qin Yuyuan cried out in pain yet again as she tried to crawl away from the water, dragging her bloody and decaying leg behind her. Seeing that she was escaping, Shue walked slowly towards Qin Yuyuan and stood on her chest. When Xuanfeng and Wuheng rushed into the mansion, Qin Yuyuan and Shue were struggling with each other by the water. Yuyuan's dress and hair were messy, her arm and leg were eaten up by the water, and blood and soft flesh could be seen all over the floor. Ah! 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 Qin Yuyuan shouted loudly. Her scream could even be heard from the hall of the mansion. It was terrifying. L.rg Shue continued kicking her, ignoring her agony. Wuhan cringed when he saw her heartless expression. This Miss Shue was getting out of hand. Sure, Miss Murong. Xuanfeng greeted them politely. Shue stopped what she was doing and looked up. She saw 20 to 30 guards in black outfit and black masks standing in front of the door, their stares both icy and fearless. You all came. Take all of these things back. Shue was delighted. All. Wuhan looked at the treasures lying around, his eyes widening at the idea of it. There were so many treasures, when would they be able to carry all of these things out? Correct, don't leave even one behind. Shue made herself clear. The treasures were found by her and Yang, so of course they owned them. Yi Chen and Qin Yuyuan would never get a single cent of it. Wuhan looked towards Yang, but he was only standing still on the side, not saying anything. The way he looked at Shue was so gentle, as if it was hinting that he would follow whatever she said. Yes. The guards replied firmly and walked into the mansion. They tidied up the jewels on the floor and put them into the boxes, then they carried those boxes out. After that, they carried the golden throne down and opened up the golden stairs. Once they filled the boxes with the golden tiles, they moved them out. There were the pearls on the walls as well, so along with the golden walls, they cracked them and filled boxes with these riches. Qin Yuyuan leaned by the water. Her dress was unkempt and her hair was a mess, her arm and hands were torn apart, and she had almost lost consciousness. Despite her blurry eyesight, she saw the guards carrying out box after box. The mansion was emptied instantly and it was no longer sparkling. Xuanfeng, Wuheng and few other guards were chopping down the golden pillars with axes, piles of gold falling down each time they chopped. Miss Murong, these 4 pillars are used to support the mansion. If we chopped all of them down, wouldn't the mansion collapse? Wuheng asked worriedly as he saw the pillars were getting thinner. Murong Shui did not care much. Don't worry, I've checked it. These 4 pillars are only for decorative purposes, they are not being used for support, so the mansion will still stand without them. Really? Wuheng doubted. Of course, why would I lie? If the mansion would collapse without them, I would have run by now. I wouldn't have stood here watching you chopping them down. Murong Shui glared at her guard. It did make sense. Wuheng nodded and breathed out in relief. He continued waving his axe and chopping down the golden pillar. The golden fragments fell piece by piece, the brilliance of it all blinding them. Qin Yuyuan's face went dark as she clenched her fist tightly. These treasures belonged to her and Yichen, but they were all stolen by Murong Shui without hesitation. How awful! She would never forget Murong Shui and her guards. Qin Yuyuan reached for her inner sleeve with her bloody hand. She took out a packet of explosives and a match. When she was about to light it up, a slim figure showed up in front of her and kicked her explosives and match away. Qin Yuyuan was shocked. She looked up and saw Murong Shui's cold expression. I see. Princess Qin hates me so much that she wanted to blow me up. I have the same thought as Princess, too. Murong Shui grabbed her by the collar and pulled Qin Yuyuan to the front. The sturdy rocks shredded Qin Yuyuan's dress, and her silky smooth skin was scraped against the harsh ground. Qin Yuyuan sensed a bad omen, so she began to struggle as she screamed, Murong Shui, what are you doing? Let me go. Murong Shui ignored her plea and pulled her over the bridge, then she continued on into the mansion and tied her up to a golden pillar. Qin Yuyuan hated her guts and wanted to kill her more than anything, therefore Murong Shui did not want to let Qin Yuyuan live anymore in case she came back from the brink of death again to cause her troubles. Princess Qin came this far to find treasures here in spite of your injuries, it was indeed a tiring journey. It would be a shame if you did not get anything, so I'll give you half of this golden pillar. Let it be part of your burial. The sound was piercing through the wind, making Qin Yuyuan shudder. Looking up at Murong Shui, she glimpsed merciless emotion in her eyes. She knew then that Murong Shui was not lying. She was planning to kill her this time. Terror exceeding her emotions, Qin Yuyuan shouted with fear, Murong Xie, how dare you kill me? You dared to kill me, why wouldn't I? Qin Yuyuan, remember this. This is Qin Yan, not Mo Bei. Don't act all stuck up here. Murong Shui warned her for the last time. With a single hand movement, Xuanfeng, Wuheng and the other guards backed off a little. Murong Shui walked around the mansion swiftly. She was facing away from Qin Yuyuan, therefore whatever she was doing could not be seen, but she knew it was not something good. The uneasiness was getting stronger. Qin Yuyuan struggled her way out and scolded angrily, Murong Shui, let me go this instant. Otherwise, I will chop you into pieces. Murong Shui ignored her again, and after completing one round of the mansion, she pulled Ouyang outside. Sun Feng, Wuheng and the rest followed behind. Qin Yuyuan then realized she was all alone in the massive mansion. Hom Long Long. The rock door began to close. Murong Shue stood outside the door and smiled at her while waving, "Princess Qing, I'll leave the rest of the golden pillars for you. I hope not to see you again." Pine. The rock door closed completely, with Murong Shue standing outside of the mansion. The place was so quiet all of the sudden that Yu Yuan could clearly hear her own heartbeat. Fearing the place would collapse, Qing Yu Yuan was sweating hard. What kind of place was this? Who would come and save her? So. A loud voice came with the breeze. Qing Yu Yuan raised her head and saw multiple feathered arrows were shooting from the wall, and each of them was pointing towards her. Chapter 98, Explosion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. If you love our translation, please consider us donating. Or we are also on Patreon. It really motivates us to give more time for translation. Editor. Ocelot, help. Help me. Qing Yu Yuan did not expect this. She wriggled to free herself, she tried to loosen the knot, but Murong Shue had made an extremely tight loop. It would not fall off, not even a bit. The feathered arrows were increasing in speed when the rock door opened up suddenly with a loud "hong." A purple shadow flew into the place, and with this force, the arrows dropped instantly. The purple robe was like the purple sky. As it landed softly in front of Qing Yu Yuan, she took in his handsome face and intense eyes. Qing Yu Yuan felt a pang of gratefulness and cried, "Yi Chen." Yi Chen looked at Qing Yu Yuan and saw her torn dress and messy hair. He hesitated for a moment but dismissed the feeling, comforting her with a soft voice, "Don't be afraid, it's all done now. I'll bring you out of here." Qing Yu Yuan nodded her head furiously as tears of joy spilled from her eyes and dripped on her face, then onto her wounds. Feeling the sharp pain, she hitched her breath and her eyes were filled with wrath once again. Wait till she gets back to the city, she will kill Murong Shue mercilessly. Yi Chen tugged forcefully on the long rope until it was in pieces and fell onto the ground. Qing Yu Yuan's leg was injured. She could not stand, she leaned against Yi Chen. Yi Chen cringed when he smelled the dusty rotten scent. And he tried not to push Qing Yu Yuan away. He held on to her waist and when they were just about to leave, "ci" sound was heard. What was that sound? Yi Chen did a quick surveillance of the area and noticed a black thread was hiding in the corner, shooting fireworks. That was a fuse. Let's go. Yi Chen carried Qing Yu Yuan and flew out of the place. All of a sudden the fuse came to an end and it exploded with a loud bang. The force of the burst through the skies and clouds. The whole mountain shook, rocks and mud rolled down from the peak, and even Ouyang and Murong Shue felt it in front of the mountain. Xuanfeng, Wuheng and the rest had to rearrange their position so that they could stand properly. Glancing towards the mountain that had finally stopped shaking, they were relieved that they could still feel their hearts beating. If the whole mountain was shaken by it, that damn thing was indeed powerful. How many explosives did you put in the mansion? Ouyang looked at Murong Shue and asked. Every single one that they brought, I positioned. I put all of them in there. Murong Shue replied happily. Wuheng cringed again. They brought those explosives to open up the entrance. There were 15 huge packets of them that could explode half of a palace, yet she used all against Qing Yu Yuan. How deep was their hatred? Fortunately, they were out of the cave. Otherwise they would have been crushed to death by the falling rocks. Ouyang looked at her, annoyed, why did you use so much? It was only Qing Yu Yuan, one person. Don't you think it's a waste? Murong Shue could not care less, we got our treasures. It's useless to keep the explosives with us, so we might as well finish them all. It would be such a hassle to bring them back. As the princess of Mo Bay, Qing Yu Yuan should have had numerous guards protecting her. Those black feathered arrows were merely to test her. It would be great if she died under the arrow attack, but if she did not, Murong Shue had prepared plenty of explosives for her. With such a force, she was certain that Qin Yuyuan would be dead by now. Ping! A rock was shoved out, creating a hole. A black figure flew out from the hole and landed in a crouching position directly in front of Murong Shui and Ouyang. The man was tall and his robe was stained in black. This mysterious figure was looking downwards, therefore they could not determine its identity. Murong Shui raised her eyebrows. Even if the people in the cave did not die in the explosion, they would have undoubtedly died under the falling rocks in the cave, but this man escaped, shoved a boulder out of the way, and flew out of the cave. That was really amazing. She wondered who was he. When she was about to raise that man's face to have a good look, the man stood up slowly. His decent features were stained with spots of black, but he gave off a cool vibe. His dark eyes were as deep as the cave and they were sharp. It was Yi Chen from Jingwang. As he stood up, a woman came into their vision. She was leaning against Yi Chen's chest and her eyes were tightly shut. Her whole body was smoky black, leaving them with no idea if she was alive or dead. Murong Shui squinted her eyes. She was certain that the woman was Qin Yuyuan, who was obviously rescued by Yi Chen. They managed to survive all those explosives. They were really lucky. The explosives in the mansion were buried by you all. Yi Chen asked as he stared coldly at Murong Shui and Ouyang. Yuyuan fell into the trap with them, so they were the ones most likely to have tied her up and planted the explosives. Correct. Murong Shui nodded and admitted it without thinking twice. Everyone knew the hatred between her and Qin Yuyuan, so it was useless to hide it. Those treasures in the mansion were taken by you, too. Yi Chen's stare was piercing. When he reached the mansion, all that was left were the remnants of the 4 golden pillars and a wounded Yuyuan, who was tied to one of them. The rest of the treasures had been taken away. Ouyang glared at Yi Chen. He did not say anything, but his eyes were mocking him. Wasn't it obvious? Yet he still asked. What a fool. How come you guys weren't injured? Yi Chen blurted in confusion. The treasure's location was filled with openings and traps, and as is the case with looking for hidden riches, the more treasures that were hidden, the more traps it would have. When he brought his people along into the cave, he was greeted by traps after just a few steps. Even though he tried to be careful, a number of his men were killed by those traps. Even he himself got slightly wounded. Murong Shui and Ouyang had walked through the cave for 1 round and reached the mansion uninjured. They also managed to get hold of the treasures. Something was not right. All thanks to Princess Qing. Ouyang threw a glance at Qin Yuyuan, who was still lying senselessly on the ground. He mocked, if it wasn't because of her, we would not have fallen into the trap and we wouldn't have been able to find the mansion so easily. BVEC. Chapter 99, Rescue by the Bank. You are listening at novelfull.audio. If you love our translation, please consider us donating. Or we are also on Patreon. It really motivates us to give more time for translation. Editor. Ocelot Ouyang continued on. The button that Qin Yuyuan pressed was not the trap, but a secret tunnel that led directly to the mansion. Even though the passage was narrow, moist, dark and stinky, it did not have any traps. That was why we were ahead of you and reached the mansion safely. Qin Yuyuan's intention was to trick them into the trap to injure and kill them, but instead she created a shortcut for them, letting them escape through the tunnel and steal all of their treasures. They had become a laughing stock. Yi Chen's face plummeted. He looked at Qin Yuyuan with his dark eyes, not saying a single word. Nobody knew what he was thinking. Master Jing Wang, the people you've chosen so carefully have created more troubles for you instead of lightening your burden. They were utterly useless. Your taste is so terrible that I cannot respect you. Ouyang scowled at Qin Yuyuan and mocked them harshly. Yi Chen was furious. Ouyang, you have no rights to tell me what to do. It's your issue, I'm not interested. Ouyang replied coldly. He turned and looked at Murong Shui, then said in a tender voice, "It's getting late, let's go back to the city." "All right." Murong Shui nodded and strolled forward. They had finally gotten the treasures, so there was no need for her to stay here any longer. As for Yi Chen, she did not care if he lived or died. Seeing her unwavering shadow, Yi Chen squinted his eyes. He did not listen to her, but he had to admit that even though Yu Yuan was the princess of Mo Bay, she could never compete with Murong Shui. Especially on the aspect of adventures, because Murong Shui was born observant. Even he could not compete with that. The fact that Yang was able to get his hands on the treasure was also because of her. Murong Shui was his fiancée. If he did not allow Yu Yuan to participate in this treasure hunting, but chose instead to work together with Murong Shui, he would be the one who owned those jewels. "Master!" A familiar yelp called out to him. It was Su Tianyu, along his wounded guards. They were limping towards him, looking quite puzzled when they saw the injured Yi Chen who was covered in smoke. Yi Chen ignored their stares and ordered, "Back to the city." Those jewels were taken away by Murong Shui and Yang, it would be useless for them to stay here. "Yes." Su Tianyu replied with a low voice, and started to give out commands to the guards. Yang looked afar and told Murong Shui who was beside him, "The treasures have been placed in the carriage. Do you want to send your share back to Jin Manor?" Murong Shui shook her head, "Not right now, just put it together with yours. I'll go get it when I need it." Yi Chen longed for those precious jewels. If she took them back to her home, Yi Chen might send his spies to steal them. She knew their manor was no competition for Jing Wang Manor. It would be a waste if Yi Chen stole all of her treasures after she'd risked her life to find them. "It's better that way." Yang nodded in agreement. His eyes were staring into space deeply. "The amount of treasure is massive. It would gain attention no matter where we carried it. I'll ask my guards to store them in a safe place first, then we will bring it back to Xiaoyao Manor secretly." "All right." Murong Shui was pleased with this plan. She knew that those treasures would stay safe under the care of Xiaoyao Manor's guards, so it did not matter where they kept them. A gentle breeze blew across the land, carrying a rotten scent along. Murong Shui was startled by it. She sniffed her sleeve and collar, then she frowned. Although this secret tunnel was safe, it had been abandoned for so many years. The ventilation of the passage was bad, therefore, the stench had gotten onto her dress during her journey. She did not realize the condition of the tunnel until the wind blew. That stench was really horrible. "Is there any water around here? I want to wash my hands." Yang smirked when he saw her darkened face. "There's a river after this mountain on the left." "Thanks." Murong Shui increased her speed towards the river's direction. Her dress smelled dreadful, she could not wait to have a wash. After they had exited the mountain, they saw a river that was extremely clear. The bank of the river had lush green grass, and the air surrounding it was so fresh. Murong Shui rushed to the stream and cupped a handful of mountain water in her palms. She washed her hands and her arms, but even though the stench was slowly fading with the rubbing, the reek was still there. She frowned and started to undo her waistband, buttons, and then she took off her long dress and washed both in the water. "What are you doing?" A man's clear voice could be heard from afar, as a musk-scented long robe was thrown at her, covering her naked body. "This is wilderness. How could you simply take off your dress? What if you met with some perverts?" Yang's face sank when he saw her, but with his long white robe swaying in the breeze, he looked so elegant. Murong Shui did not think that much. "I've checked through the area, and there's no one around except you." Yang was perplexed. "You undid your dress for me." Murong Shui frowned even harder. "Stop thinking nonsense. It's because of the stench on my dress. I just want to take it off and wash it." She was wearing a pair of white innerwear. Not even a single piece of skin was showing. It was like the way people wore a white shirt and a pair of jeans in modern era. It did not matter if people saw her. "Really?" Oh Yang smirked. Why would I lie to you? I'm not going to wash my dress anymore. It was useless for Murong Shui to explain herself. She grabbed her dress from the water furiously and was about to leave when suddenly she noticed a faint red color in the water. Stunned by that sight, she stopped her movements and went forward to take a good look. It was then she saw a man was lying dead by the river, with his upper body buried in the bushes and his lower body in the water. A gush of red blood was seeping out as the small waves flushed his body. I thought there's nobody around. Oh Yang saw this and he asked in a serious tone. Murong Shui. This man was covered and half buried in the grass. How could he blame her if she did not notice this corpse? Moreover, shouldn't he had go ahead and check if he was still alive? Why did Oh Yang care for something else? Seeing her confused look, Oh Yang replied, I'm not interested in a half-dead man. But we shouldn't just leave him to die here. Murong Shui ignored him and walked towards the man. She grabbed his shoulders to turn him around. A pale face greeted them as she did so. His face was porcelain-like and fine-looking. It's him. Oh Yang recognized him and he grimaced. Murong Shui blinked her eyes and looked at Oh Yang. You know him. Who is he? Chapter 100, Awoken. You are listening at novelfull.audio. If you love our translation, please consider us donating. Or we are also on Patreon. It really motivates us to give more time for translation. Editor. Ocelot, someone who doesn't matter. Oh Yang replied emotionlessly. Murong Shui looked up at the sky and said, Who asked about your relationship with him? I want to know his name. I've only met him once, so I don't know his name. Oh Yang stated calmly, not wanting to explain further. Really? Murong Shui looked at him with doubting eyes. She recalled the moment he saw him. He was really shocked then. It did not look like they had met only once. Of course, why would I lie? Oh Yang continued. Murong Shui smirked. The man's identity did not really matter to her, but there was something she needed to do. She stretched out small palm in front of Oh Yang and said, Take it out. What? Oh Yang looked at her confused. The medicine. He's hurt his shoulders and thigh, the bleeding won't stop, and I need to stop it immediately. Murong Shui explained with a serious face. Oh Yang scowled and stared at her, You really want to save him? Murong Shui blinked, He's badly injured but it's not infected yet. I could save him if I cleaned his wounds and put on some ointment. Such simple task, why wouldn't I do it? Oh Yang was agitated. This man was not as simple as she thought. It would be a disaster if she saved him. Murong Shui did not know what he was thinking. Seeing that he did not continue speaking, she put her hand into his pocket straightaway and took out a small green vase. We are doing a good deed by saving others, so stop hesitating. You provide the medicine, I'll do the work. Let's save people. Murong Shui smiled as she said it, then she pulled the man out of the bush by grabbing his shoulders. After that she placed him flat on the ground, took off his clothes and started treating the wounds. Her skill was swift and trained, it was so impressive. The man's eyes were shut tightly. His long eyelashes wiggled slightly and then they came to a stop. Murong Shui did not notice his movement as she was concentrating on treating his injuries. She tied a decent ribbon on his shoulder as a makeshift bandage and sighed in relief when she was done checking his wounds. Finally, it was all done. Slowly she stood up and looked at Oh Yang. Sir, Xuanfeng and Wuheng shouldn't have gone far, let's ask them to carry this man back. Oh Yang's jaw dropped, You want to take care of him back in the city? Not really. Murong Shui shook her head. I just thought that since this is wilderness, wild animals would come at any time. He's injured and unconscious, he would be dead if there are any animals here. Let's just save him and bring him back. He can leave when he's awake. Oh Yang was relieved when he heard that, his men should be here soon, they'll take good care of him. Let's just leave him. Are you sure? Murong Shui had doubts. Since when did I lie to you? It's getting late, let's go. Yang grabbed on her hands and traveled ahead. The man lay on the ground, not moving. His pale face was so white, Murong Shui was still troubled. It wouldn't be so nice if we just left like this, so let's wait until his men come. Wait, till they're here and we tell them we saved him. Let them repay us. Yang continued her sentence. Murong Shui's face darkened. I'm not that kind of person, I don't ask for repay. Since you won't, let's leave. Yang held her waist and dragged her. Murong Shui scowled at his action. Yang, why do you want to leave so badly? Yang glanced at her and said, your outfit isn't suitable to see any man. Murong Shui was stunned, then she remembered she was still in Yang's robe. The silk material was half transparent, her innerwear could be clearly seen. He was right, she could not see the man's people in this. When she was still, Yang threw her a gentle glance. He grabbed tightly on her waist and they continued walking. There's no wild animals around here, he will be fine. His men are close, they should be here any minute. As they traveled further and disappeared at a turning point, a slim feminine figure walked towards the man. Her long dress was sky blue and she was a stunning lady. She was the granddaughter of Su Nanxiang. Glaring ahead at the turning point, Hu Nanxiang's eyes were filled with fury. She was passing by earlier and she did not expect to see Murong Shui here, and she was even teasing around with Yang. How annoying. She had never experienced such intimacy before. Her wrath lingered for a moment. When she felt better, she looked down at the lifeless man. His eyes were closed and his breathing was faint, his face was as pale as a sheet of paper. What kind of injuries did he have? Hu Nanxiang frowned as she squatted to take a good look. Suddenly a piercing sound flew across the sky. A man in black appeared beside the injured man, his long sword was pointing towards her as he stared daggers at the woman, asking, who are you? Hu Nanxiang thought and said, I'm your master's life-saver. The paleness of the man could not hide his identity and status. The man was handsome and his outfit looked expensive, therefore she assumed he was from a plush background. It would be useful for her if he owed her his life. The man in black was astounded. He saw the bandages around his shoulders and thigh, the ribbon tied on the bandages indicating it was the work of a woman. The man on the ground coughed and slowly opened his eyes, they were like the shining stars in galaxy. The man in black was delighted when he saw that. He quickly bent down and carried him. Master, you're awake. The man nodded slightly and stood up with the man in black's help. He sensed a sharp pain in his leg. He grimaced and saw the ribbon bandages on his body, then he looked at Hu Nanxiang, did you save me?